Good morning and welcome today to Cedar Creek Homestead. This is my world and I want to show you a little bit of what's going on. God has blessed us so abundantly, and show you a little bit of what goes on here at our homestead. Trying to put videos up as frequently as I can, at least a couple times a week. But one thing we do is rotational grazing. I don't know if you're into rotational grazing or not. If you've got cattle, you should have heard about this by now. They move them to different pastures. Some of them now, the sophisticated way is to say paddock. We move them to paddocks. But anyway, I'm moving them today to another pasture. It varies. This time of the year, I move the cows almost on a daily basis. Sometimes it'll be a 2-day thing. I'm trying to, this is kind of earlier part of the summer, and I'm trying to keep them from eating the grass down too short. As you can tell, they're butterballs, they're fat, they're doing good. The grass is starting to get ahead of them a little bit, and in these rains and things, that's what I want. I actually run more cattle here than what most people can, and I attribute it to rotational grazing. Me and my dad, a few years ago, decided we would start rotationally grazing our cattle and give it a try. My grandfather owned this years ago, and it was divided off in little 10-acre pastures, and so he would move them maybe once a week, whatever he felt like. He would move them around, and done rotational grazing. That was something that they taught many years ago, and it's starting to come back now. And I think it's because land is getting so expensive, and fertilize and inputs that you have for your property, that people have started doing rotational grazing. And I can tell you, I would like to buy some more land, but it's just so expensive that it doesn't seem, with the price of cattle, and cattle are actually going down in price, it doesn't seem like a payoff if you to raise cattle to ever pay for the land in my lifetime. But I may still buy some more property, but it's just, you know, I'm not saying I won't, I'm just saying that it would take some doing to get some property right now. So what I'm doing is I do fertilize still. I have not this year, as far as for my summertime pasture. I haven't fertilized at all. I had a little wheat planted in places, and I took a ton of fertilizer and put out for it. But this spring, I put some out last fall, and that kind of helped my cows through the winter months. But anyway, the rotational grazing, what you do is, it's different depending on the size of the pasture or paddock. You move your cows. Now these are going to go through the woods, but they know that there is another field over there, and they're full. They're not all that hungry. They act like they're hungry, but they're going to go around and eat some over yonder. So that's perfectly fine. They can go wherever they want to, and they'll be on these fields for that pasture I just put them on. I'll probably have them on there for a day or two. Then I'll rotate them to the next field. This here is about 40 acres they just went on. I'll move them over to a 20-acre field in a day or two, and I'll leave them on that field for a day or so. Sometimes that particular field I have used for hay. Not this year. We may use it for a fall cutting, just depends. But it seems like our grass and stuff this year hasn't grown as quickly as normal, and I think it's because we've had cooler weather. We haven't hit 90 here in eastern Oklahoma at all yet. We've been up there close. I think we've had 87, 88 degrees, but we haven't hit 90 as of yet. And anyway, I just given you a little bit about rotational grazing. OSU, Oklahoma State University, has some very interesting stuff about rotational grazing. I see lots of folks have got videos. There's a guy named Greg Judy up in Missouri that does rotational grazing. We have like 75 mama cows and 2 bulls plus calves right now. So a pretty good size, what I consider. But some people got 300, 400, 500 head of cattle, much larger than me, and maybe this wouldn't be feasible for you. But if I had a 5-acre piece of property, I would divide it into an acre paddocks or pastures, and I would rotate my cattle. If I had to rotate them every day, if I could, I would divide it in 7 little pastures, and then I could move them every day of the week. And so then you got 7 days of regrowth. And when it gets hot, now here we have mostly Bermuda grass pasture, so whatever you have, that could make a difference. But if you got Bermuda grass, when it gets hot and humid, the nights get up in the 60s. The daytime temperatures are hot and humid, and you get just a little rain. It doesn't take a lot of rain. The Bermuda grass here just goes crazy, and it's just now really getting to going, and that grass will bank and it'll get way ahead of my cows. But first, before that happens, they have to eat on other stuff. There's some fescue in places here. There's some weeds. They'll eat some of your weeds and stuff. Now when the Bermuda grass comes on, they get a little more selective on eating some of the weeds. And I don't want mine to be weed eaters, but if they eat them, that's fine with me. But I want them to have good quality forage. Some weeds actually have a lot of protein and are good for cattle, so, but mine will eat some of the weeds. And but when the Bermuda grass comes on, it seems to flourish at a shorter height, so I don't mind it being short, but it'll start banking on me. It'll start getting taller and taller. And by fall, I'll have some extra if we keep rains. Now in a drought year, that doesn't happen, but we'll usually have some extra. And then I might even want to cut part of our property for hay here. But for right now, I'm rotating them, and I'll have to buy my hay. That's what I always do. I don't have my haying equipment, so I have to pay someone to cut my hay. So for a little bit more, I can buy hay that's off of somebody else's property and use my property for grazing. And I like for my cows and calves to get all they want to eat of grass, and good quality grass. And Bermuda grass is a very, very quality. But already this spring, my cows, some of them are just roly-poly fat. And as far as I know, everything is rebred already. I'll probably take the bulls out about the 1st of July. I would like to be done calving by the 1st of April. Now, I will have some fall calves, and usually about Thanksgiving time I'll put the bulls back in again. It's what I've done this last year anyway, and let them breed the cows, and I'll end up with some fall calves. Sometimes you have some cows that were late calvers, whatever, but I try not to have summertime calves. With all the grass and all the good stuff they have, you would think you would do very well having them calve during the middle of summer. And mine just don't seem to do all that well when they calve in the middle of summer, but they seem to do exceptionally well calving early spring, March and April. I have some that will calve January, February, March, April, all 4 months. That's fine with me. But then by the 1st of April, this year I had some April calves. That's okay. But certainly by May, I don't really like any May calves, don't really want any June calves or July, August. But then in September, our temperatures start cooling off and they'll calve, and it seems like they'll do okay. The only thing is I supplement them more with grain, a little bit of grain and stuff like that in the winter. So I'm trying to get more where I'm mostly just grass-fed. Don't have to. I'm not doing that because I promote grass-fed beef, but I just do it because I feel like when you don't put much money into them, the less you put, the better. I do have to buy hay and feed them in the winter some hay, but I try to let them eat the leftover pasture they had as long as possible and supplement a little bit with grain, but as little as possible, and keep them coming on here. But anyway, the rotational grazing has worked very well for us here in Oklahoma. Whether it works for you or you are, I don't know. If I was a small-scale homesteader and had me a milk cow, and had 5 acres to run a milk cow or 2 on, I would have it sectioned off in at least 7 different paddocks. And I would use electric fencing. In my perimeter fence, I would have good barbed wire or field fence, something really strong. But my interior fences, paddocks, at first I would just electrify the fences. That way, if you find out your paddock isn't quite like what you want, or whatever, you need to move them around, you can move them. And some people, a lot of dairy farms use electric fence for everything, the perimeters, the whole works. So you could certainly do that. I just, with beef cattle, some of mine get a little adventurous, and they want to run around on me and get out of the pasture, so I try to keep a good exterior fence and keep barbed wire fencing. But in the interior, I have a lot of electric fence, and some I have experimented with. Some I've had up long enough that's electric. I use solar chargers, and they've worked, and it seems like that's where I want it. So as I go along each year, I try to replace the electric, one section of electric fence each year, with barbed wire. And this fall I'll try to get some film. Right behind the camera here is a section that I've had electric fence on for about 10 years. It's working great, but I will probably fix it more permanent. And one reason is because the property behind it I do not own, and I just lease it. I've had it leased for years, but my dad had it before me, and then now myself. But just in case I was to lose it, if I had a really good, strong, that would be a perimeter fence as well. But where I've got it at and where I've cleaned out, it just works good. And I think I'll put a permanent fence through there come fall or winter. But anyhow, just a little bit here on the homestead, what we do on grazing cattle. And like I said earlier, I have more cattle running here per acre than what most would do, and I attribute that into good management. I'm not bragging on myself. I'm just saying I have studied and watched other people and tried things, and it seems to work, having little pastures. And I think I've got 7 different pastures right now, and I may even, a couple of them are kind of big, and I'm working on dividing them, so I'd have about 9. Well, if I rotate every day of the week, that means it has a whole week of growth before the cows are back on it again. Some are so big that they run their cows like the cows will never be on the same pasture again. Now, there's different land. There's some places that it takes 30, 40, 50 acres of land for one cow. Here, we can run a cow per acre with no trouble at all. Now, not year-round. You do have to supplement with hay in the wintertime, and that's pretty much anywhere. I know people here that have several acres per cow, and they have to do that. But our land just happens to be blessed, and I attribute that to God. That God has just blessed us. And when I say this is my world, something I've been saying lately, just making kind of, there's a guy on Fox News that says Water's World, and he used to say, this is my world. And so I'm kind of copycatting him, because this is world I live in right here, the simple life, the country life, and it's the life for me. I love it. I thank God that He has blessed me where I can come back to the country. There was a year or two in my life I had to live in town. Oh, I hated it. I was miserable. And so since then I've been, I guess it's the Lord's allowed me to see what my life could have been like. And some people love the city life. Hey, that's great if that's what you like. But I like the country life. I like the simple life. I don't like a lot of complications. I don't like stress, all that baloney. And so I get out here and make some videos and get to share what's going on in my world, in my homesteading world, what's going on in my life. And I love watching others share what's going on in their life. But I sure appreciate you watching us today. If you haven't subscribed, if you'd like to help our channel and subscribe, we would certainly appreciate your subscribing. Looks like a fly just landed on the camera lens there. But subscribe to us. I would appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video. You can also, there's a little bell up there you can click, and when I put up new videos, well, you'd be sent a notification. I've got several that I get notifications on a regular basis from, the ones that I really like to watch. And if you like our channel, well, we'd appreciate you watching. This is the day the Lord has made. I'm going to be glad, and I'm going to rejoice in it. Certainly appreciate you watching. God bless you, and we'll see you next time here on Cedar Creek Homestead. we're gone.